the vault, high atop the pastoral center of the Diocese of Camden, you're listening to Talking Catholic.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Talking Catholic. I'm Jen Morrow, and with me today is Mike Walsh. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Jen, how are you?
I'm good. We haven't been on the podcast together in a while, so it's good to be back in action.
Come to think of it, the last podcast you recorded was with Mike Bress, right?
It is. Yes, it is. It was fun. There's a lot of jocularity.
That was a terrible interview. It was awful. Bress did a terrible job. No, what we found was that the two of you actually have a very good rapport. So I have a feeling Bress will be replacing me on occasionally future podcasts.
And we had wanted to do a podcast for a while because, you know, we get along well. We have good conversations. So we were excited to do it. And I think it was a success, if I may say so myself as well.
I had to admit that Mike did a very good job, which I found disappointing because I was looking forward to him crashing and burning. But no, sadly, he did a great job. So I'm closer. I find myself even closer to being replaced now, as it should be. So I look at the gray in my beard and realize I'll be put out to pasture soon. One can only hope. Of course, we also happen to work in a diocese where the bishop is currently 78, put in his letter of retirement 3 years ago, and he said the Holy Father has kept him here. So who knows? I might be here for at least as long as I might be here until Bishop Sullivan gets replaced in 10 or 20 years. Who knows? So we'll see what happens.
We'll see.
But
what's been going on?
Nothing much. We're actually about to jump into one of our favorite seasons. By the time this episode airs, we'll either be through or mostly through graduation season in the diocese, which is always fun for me. Actually, I, as I've mentioned to you and on the podcast before, I'm a sucker for pomp and circumstance. So I love watching graduation ceremonies, ordinations, installations, coronations.
You did? Yes. And you baked for the coronation. So
I did bake for the coronation. Even as an Irishman, I baked for the coronation for King Charles III.
Wait, are you gonna bake for graduations? Are you gonna celebrate? I mean, I know you don't have anybody graduating, but you will be on stage at one of the high schools. So I feel like you should bake for that.
That's true. I've been asked to be I've been told that I'm a dignitary as an alum of Gloucester Catholic High School, and they've asked me to take part in their commencement exercises. So I am actually looking forward to that. I don't believe I'll be baking for it, though I wouldn't. You never know with me. I did, however, just bake this weekend for the first time in a while. I made a nice Jewish apple cake, and and I was thinking about it. I was actually thinking about it as I was looking at recipes and whatnot, and I was like, geez, I wonder why they call it a Jewish apple cake. And it's intentional. Jewish apple cakes are made with oil and not dairy products, so that for practicing Jews can have a Jewish apple cake as their dessert.
Wow!
Depending on how you follow your Jewish practices, you don't mix dairy with meats and things like that. Right. So yeah, it was. I like to think that I was an homage to my Jewish brethren.
Would you bring some in for the office? I would love to try that.
Well, here's the thing. There's actually a little bit of it in my lunch bag right now, which I'll show you. And I actually made a ton, and it is so good. There it is on screen. It is so good that I decided not to bring it because I really don't want to share. I'll be honest with you.
Now, there have been times that I have conned my way into having, some of the treats that you bring to the office. Could this be one of those days?
No, there will not be. This will, if you make a move for that cake, there will be murderous intent in my response. I really don't.
You better eat it between now and 54 minutes from now, because I'm definitely coming up.
It'll be gone. It'll be gone before you arrive. And actually, we said a little prayer before the recording today, which is taking place on the Feast of the Visitation of the Blessed Virgin Mary. And it reminded me that I was actually at the Church of the Visitation when I was on pilgrimage in Israel. That was a fond memory, matter of fact.
What was the church like?
It was nice. It was nice. There's some dispute as to whether its location is the actual site of the visitation between Elizabeth and Mary. However, it's a beautiful homage. It's a very impressive church. It's up on a hill in Jerusalem, and it's in this sort of neighborhood section. So you have to sort of walk through a neighborhood to get it. But it's actually whether it's the correct place or not. It's there's a real beauty in it of these two impressive women from that time period, sort of meeting together. One the mother of John and the other the mother of Jesus, and sort of coming together. And it was very powerful. Actually, I noticed that a number of, particularly the women, but also the married men, were really moved being there. Like one of the men in pilgrimage sent a bunch of photos from our visit there and remarked on how powerful it was for him. So that was kind of, I don't know if he was thinking of his daughter or his children, but it really made an impression on him. So once again, if you ever get the chance, go on pilgrimage.
Yes. What part of the trip was that for you? Like the beginning, the middle,
That was the first day we entered Jerusalem. That was actually the first. I think that was the first. That was the first of two sites that we went to. We actually went to a church that was built over top of a Muslim site dedicated to Mary, as a matter of fact, because of course Mary is in the Quran. And I'm trying to remember for the life of me. We went to someplace before we went to the Church of the Visitation, but it was literally walking distance away. And now I can't remember where we went. But anyway, so if you ever get a chance, another reminder. As a matter of fact, if anybody was looking at the Talking Catholic Facebook feed recently, I posted a reminder of the upcoming pilgrimages that Father Hughes will be spiritual director of, and the next one is Greece, and then next year on a date to be, and that's going to be in October, and then next year on a date to be determined will be Lisbon, Spain, Lourdes, and Paris.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Mike, if I can just interrupt that theme of visitation, that's the theme that Pope Francis is using for the World Youth Day, or World Youth event in Fatima or Portugal.
Exactly.
And so it's all connected.
Now, I'm going to allow this break in protocol, because Father Vincent Guest did an excellent job of adding a little to it, and he's absolutely right. But we should do our best to invite to tell the listener who just spoke up, and that was our guest, Father Vincent Guest. Hello, Father Vincent. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Mike. Thanks for letting me join the conversation.
No, actually, I appreciate you chiming in. I like it when the guests do that. Our intro was running a little long, so I actually started to feel bad for keeping you guys waiting. So, Father Vince is the pastor of which parish in the city of Camden?
I'm in Sacred Heart Parish in Camden. Be my third year anniversary coming up in July. And our parish consists of three churches here in the city: Sacred Heart, of course, and St. Joan of Arc, which is in the Fairview section, and St. Bartholomew, which is a few blocks from Sacred Heart on Kane Avenue. And that's the first church in the diocese. And I'm thinking all New Jersey that was established for the worshiping for Black Catholics. Mm-hmm. And so that's part of our community too. So we have one parish with three diverse and vibrant churches.
I visited all three in my time here, and I love coming to them. They're in unique neighborhoods in Camden, but each one of them tells a story. Yeah. And Sacred Heart Church, perhaps, is definitely one of the more unique churches. Some of the paintings that are there are truly impressive. So we have Father Vince with us, and then we have one of our favorite guests, someone we literally can't keep away, the Secretary for Pastoral Life. I think I got that one right for once. Nope. Still got it wrong.
You didn't.
And the Director of Discipleship and Leadership for the Diocese of Camden. Oh man, I'm dying here. Donna Ottaviano-Britt. Hey Donna, how's it going?
Hi, Mike. Hi, Jen. Nice to see you both. Yeah, Mike, I think you should eat that Jewish apple cake. I think you're going to need it.
I may eat it on camera while Jen starts to talk, to tell you the truth. Yeah, because I haven't had lunch and I'm kind of hungry. So, Donna, what is the name of your secretariat again?
Pastoral Outreach.
Outreach.
Yeah,
All
so it
right.
has multiple
One of those
offices up under that header, right? So it's life and justice, discipleship and leadership, worship and Christian initiation, and family and youth and young adults. So,
and Donna, for our regular listeners, everyone knows that we can't keep Donna off the podcast, but thank you once again for joining us. And then we have a newbie. So Father Vince has been on before, and Donna's been on before, and now we have someone completely new. Deacon Bob Dooley. How are you, Deacon?
Very well, thank you.
Thank you for joining us. And your parish is?
St. Brendan Navigator in Avalon and Stone Harbor.
The summer months down in Avalon and Stone Harbor. What a tough life you have, Deacon Bob.
Packed house this weekend.
And the summer is just about to kick off soon. So did the traffic already start coming down the island, or?
Oh yeah, they started on Thursday before the weekend.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was very busy. Very busy. Standing room only.
Oh, good. I was just about to say, were the churches, were they full? So that's good to hear.
They were very full.
Oh, wow. That's great. Well, I'm excited to be on the podcast with you, Deacon Bob, because I haven't had the pleasure to meet you. And you're, like you said, Mike said, first time podcaster today. So
we love first time podcast guests. And we're talking about a topic that we've touched on a number of times in previous podcast over the last year or two. One that we've actually, I think most of us here are now experts in. Lord knows Donna is. We're talking today about the Eucharistic Revival, and I'm gonna turn to Donna now, and like I always do before we broach this subject. Hey Donna, what is the Eucharistic Revival?
Do we do this every time? I'm not sure.
We really do. I think that I've asked you like the same question maybe 4 or 5 times, but I enjoy your description better than mine.
Well, so what I would say about the Eucharistic Revival is it's a 3-year journey to launch us who are Catholics into a place that is the great sending. So if you think about, right, we just had Pentecost, and what did Jesus tell them as he ascended? Go and make disciples of all nations. And that's actually what's embedded in our baptismal call. And so the USCCB has created plans for this 3-year Eucharistic revival. And it's really around deepening the belief of Catholics in Jesus's real presence in the Eucharist. And really, what is that at heart? It's really, do our fellow sisters and brothers in the Catholic faith have a relationship with the person of Jesus? And that's really, it's the movement towards helping Catholics who are in Mass to understand what the Eucharist is in the liturgy. And so that they're actually approaching the altar, they're approaching the throne of God and receiving Jesus himself in the Eucharist. It was his great gift to us. So in all of that, that was, because the research would show that of church-going Catholics, many believe that the Eucharist is a symbol and not actually Jesus himself. And so this big initiative to really evangelize, if you will, our own fellow sisters and brothers sitting in the pews. Right. And that if we are well evangelized in that space, if we have a personal relationship with the person of Jesus, then we are in a much better position to share and explain why we believe what we believe and how we believe that Jesus is fully present. And that's really what this is all about. And so it's actually a rather exciting time to be a Catholic and to be involved in sort of this whole process. But I will quote Father Robert Hughes, and I think I've done this before a number of times, is that he's not necessarily thrilled they chose the word revival because the Eucharist is absolutely alive because it's Jesus. We are the ones who need to be revived. Right. So I think that's really good perspective for those of us who are working on it at the parish level, for those of us working on it at the diocesan level, and for anyone who's listening to this podcast who will actually be a recipient of all the work that's being done, is to think about that. That's so right, yeah. There's your long-winded answer.
No, that was actually the most concise answer you've given yet.
Is that supposed to be a compliment?
It's debatable. Father Hughes says he would have preferred to be referred to as a Eucharistic renewal. would have been, and I had tend to agree with them. I appreciate what the USCCB was thinking when they said revival, but renewal is definitely more accurate. So we've gone through, the USCCB sort of prepared us, and we've gone through the diocesan phase, which for us essentially concluded with the Eucharistic Congress that we held in Camden back on March 25th, the Feast of the Annunciation, I believe. And that was a great event. We certainly had a number of podcast episodes about that. We had Father Hyde on it. Matter of fact, I just heard another Father Hyde story recently about some folks that had dinner with the bishop at his house when Father Hyde happened to be staying there, and Father Hyde joined them for dinner, and they were blown away by him. Like, even in that small space, they were really impressed by his perspective on the Eucharistic revival, and then his vocation in general. And it was a great experience. So even in small groups, Donna, as we often like to say, great things were happening.
Yeah, he did a really great job, I think, when he came and spoke to everyone across the diocese. And actually, I probably should tell everyone to follow us, the Diocese of Camden, on social media, but I would highly recommend go follow Father Patrick Hyde on Twitter. He's got some excellent content that he's putting out there.
Oh.
Yes.
I will do that. Thank you. Because when he was here, I mean, he had so many different messages. He had the message that was geared toward high schoolers. Then he addressed a youth group. He addressed just the priests, and then and clergy. And then after that, it was the entire, 3,000 people roughly from across the diocese and beyond. And his message resonated with everybody. Like, there were so many different spiritual morsels to take away from that. I have food on the mind, so morsels. Thanks.
I was going to say that was really good. Spiritual morsels. I love that.
Spiritual morsels. Yeah. So what can you tell us about, we've just gone through the diocesan phase, but from my understanding now we're entering the parish phase. Is that correct, Donna?
Yes. So that's actually going to start. That will kick off officially, although the teams are working already, and they've been working for a number of weeks now to prepare for this transitional period where they will be responsible for what happens at the parish level as part of this Eucharistic revival. So it will start on the Feast of Corpus Christi, which is Sunday, June the 11th. And the hope certainly is that there's a lot going on in all of our parishes on that particular Sunday. So lots of Eucharistic processions, preferably off the campus, not just around the parking lot, but being an outward sign to the community, really, and giving some consideration to what that actually looks like. Maybe some of our folks even need to understand why we even do a thing like this. And some of the parishes have partnered with their local community media outlets for coverage. And so I think there'll be a lot of exciting things that are happening. And I think one of our guests is going to talk about that today. So I'm looking forward to that. But really, it's a launch of a year where the parish Eucharistic Revival teams are going to take their parish families on a journey. And so part of it is the reinvigoration of worship, right? There's a couple of invitations that are embedded in this year. The reinvigoration of worship, because, where do most of our parish family encounter the parish is on Sunday. So how is it when our people come to the masses on the weekend? How are they touched? What's the music like? How is the gospel proclaimed, the readings, et cetera? So what is that whole experience for them like? So there's a lot of focus there on Sunday. But there's also every opportunity over this next year to provide all the people of your parish family with an encounter with Jesus. So in whatever ways that might look, based on the uniqueness of your parish family, and also Eucharistic small groups. So I've been on the podcast enough. I'm a huge fan of small group because I think it's where spiritual friendships are made, right? I understand the importance of Mass. I wouldn't miss it, but I don't make friends when I go to Mass, other than maybe with Jesus, but Eucharistic small groups are critical. So they're coming, USCCB is coming with content for that. And it goes to our formation. What do we believe, right? So helping us with that. And the journey moves us towards the third year, which is the Great Sending. So again, think Pentecost, think go make disciples, think share your faith, and tell them about Jesus.
So, Father Guest, what is this going to look like in Sacred Heart Parish in Camden?
Well, we're very excited, Jen, and the whole team here for the event. Last year, I had a goal of having a procession on Corpus Christi Sunday from Sacred Heart to the Cathedral Parish, work with Father Fisher. But as we were planning that and talking about that, Father Fisher got news he was being changed. He was moving out of the cathedral to another oblate parish in Philadelphia. So that never came about last year. So what I did last year is process to all of our churches here in Camden, as I mentioned. So last year we did have a procession through the streets of South Camden, from St. Joan of Arc, St. Bart's, and to Sacred Heart, about a 4-mile walk, maybe a little less than 4-mile walk. And we had a nice group of parishioners, all part of that, walk through the streets of South Camden. And it was just a wonderful experience for everybody. We did that the day after the diocese had their procession on the boardwalk in Atlantic City. So we kind of piggybacked on the diocesan idea. And this year, as we entered into the parish phase of the revival, I really wanted to once again think about processing through the streets of Camden, but not just through our parish of Sacred Heart in South Camden. And so I reached out to Father Adam Shesky over at the cathedral, the rector of the cathedral, and Father Jaime Hostios, who's pastor of St. Joe's in East Camden, St. Joe's Pro Cathedral. And we had a few meetings, and we all were really enthused about let's take this to the streets of Camden. And so that's exactly what we're going to do. As Donna was mentioning, we're going to literally walk with Jesus. And that's the theme of our procession, walking with Jesus through the streets of Camden. And we'll do that on the Feast of the Body and Blood of Christ, Corpus Christi, on Sunday afternoon, June 11th. And the plan as it's unfolding is we will start at Sacred Heart here in South Camden, and with parishioners in tow, with walking and vehicles also. We will move and process down Broadway, which is the main artery here in the city, as a lot of people know. And we will process from Sacred Heart to the cathedral, have a short prayer service in the cathedral, and then from there, with folks from the cathedral parish, process up Federal Street to St. Joe's Pro Cathedral for final prayers, music, and final benediction at St. Joe's Pro Cathedral. Our plan is to have all of our church choirs together, especially at St. Joe's. So we'll have a really multicultural expression of worship with Spanish and English, and our gospel choir all singing praise to our Lord in the Blessed Sacrament at the final conclusion of that. So we're really looking forward to it. We got approval from the city. We'll have police escorting us in front of us and behind us. They're very much in favor of what we're doing. And the city's been very cooperative with everything we do here, actually, in the city. And so looking forward to bringing Jesus in the streets of Camden. And if you know Camden, we will literally be walking through the main arteries of the city. We'll be cutting right through the city of Camden, from South Camden down Broadway, the central part of Camden where the cathedral is, and then turning up Federal Street in the East Camden. So two main arteries of the city will experience Catholics in procession with our Lord. We first thought about maybe doing this down by the riverfront. There's a walkway down by the aquarium, but we all thought we'd have more of an impact walking in the streets of the city.
Yeah.
And I said to the other pastors, Jesus wouldn't be at the aquarium. He'd be in the streets. He'd be walking in the streets, and we'll see so much as I do every day, walking past those who are addicted, those who are homeless, broken down and windows, and some of the sad parts of the city, which are still there. But that's okay. And that's where we want to be. And that's where we want to touch people's lives and just let them know that something special is happening here. We'll have information about our parishes. We'll have information about the Eucharist. We'll have medals and rosaries to hand out to people, as we did last year when we did it in our parish. And walking through South Camden, we got very positive, thoughts from people. No problems at all. Many people weren't Catholic, but they came out of their house and would make a vow or bless themselves or or fold their hands, in prayer. And so people knew, even if they weren't Catholic, they knew something special was happening. They knew it was a holy event. And that's what we hope to take to the whole city this year.
That's beautiful. I love to hear that. And I think you're absolutely right about how it's being done. We had similar reactions to that when we did the procession in Atlantic City a year ago. And, I certainly know that during the pandemic, actually, there were a number of Eucharistic processions that took place in parishes around South Jersey. And I think it serves two purposes. One, I think it's affirming. I think it's great to see people out there together in such a wonderful event. And, as a PR guy, I always think it's good for branding too. I think it's good that people see us out there. I mean, it's important, and I think that some of our parishes don't do it enough. So I'm glad that you did it last year and you're doing it again this year. I think it's great. And I love the fact that you've included the Cathedral Parish in your planning. It's great when we can see a lot of parishes working together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree, and we spoke about making this an annual event. Maybe next year, leaving from St. Joe's and processing, that way, or both meeting in the cathedral. But we were very enthusiastic, the three pastors and the staffs who met, about doing more things together. As Bishop often says, and Father Hughes and you, Donna, in your role, how important it is for parishes to work together. We're one church. We're one church of Camden, and the more we do things together, the better off we'll all be to grow in love with each other, in love with our Lord, and spread that love in the communities. We're not fighting against each other. We're united in our faith. And I think, especially in a place like Camden, how we need to work together for these kind of things. And I think it's a great start for lots of good things to come in the future for us.
Now, on very much the other side of the state, Deacon Bob is where you. So Father Vince, for anyone not familiar with what New Jersey looks like, Father Vince is right next to the Delaware River. And Deacon Bob, you're right next to the Atlantic Ocean.
That's correct.
So what does the planning look like in Avalon Stone Harbor?
So we've been doing Eucharistic processions on Corpus Christi for many years. It's something that we've changed the route on over time and done from different churches, or gone from one church to the other. This year, we're doing something that we haven't done before, in that we're going to go right down through the main shopping area in Stone Harbor. So there should be a lot of people there. We always get people joining us on the route and people coming out of their homes, but this is where we need to be. We need to be right out there. And some people expressed some concerns about safety and clogging up the street for what will probably be all of 15 minutes, but that's where we need to be, and there should be a lot of activity there. Mm-hmm. So we are kind of making a circle around, going from St. Paul's Church a few blocks to that shopping area, 96th Street, and going down a couple blocks and going south several blocks and heading back to St. Paul's. And then we will have benediction on the front, little bit of a lawn that we have next to the church, out in front of our hall. So we're trying to expand on it a little bit. Like I said, we've done it for many, many years, and we have a lot of people in golf carts that join us. There's a lot of golf carts on the island, and so we have golf carts that join us. That is helpful for the people who can't walk the distance, and but it's exciting. It's something that we don't just have to do this on Corpus Christi,
Exactly.
That's a great point.
Yeah. So we have a lot of people working very hard to make this very special, and we're very glad that the police actually we're still waiting for the final vote, but it'll happen because we have I think 4 parish members on the town council. So out of 7, so I think we'll get the vote.
Hey, listen, I mean, Jen has heard this rant of mine before, but I want Catholics to run for office and be a part of the mix, not so that we, force our will on people, but so that we're part of the conversation. I think that that's an important thing. I think Catholics should be elected to office, particularly in small towns, where, we can make sure that not just our churches, but every church, every member of the faith has an opportunity to be a part of, the city center, to be a part of the community, so that we're not ostracized.
That's our calling. Absolutely, Mike. That's our calling. To be, especially a layperson's calling, is to be out in the midst of the world. I love Bishop Barron talks about Vatican II, about how we're called to the lay folks are called to Christify the world, and I think that's a great expression. And then you do that on school boards, and in city councils, and in mayor's offices, and of course in state offices, and in Washington too. But that's our call, Mike, as you said, to Christify, to bring our good news into the world.
Absolutely.
I like that.
So Donna, get on it.
I was just going to, I'm going to call Catholics into the public life. But it is really where we should be, is in the public square. Yeah. Lending our voice, sharing the gospel. That's what we're supposed to do. So how do we bring the good news of Jesus into the public square? Part of it is by holding public office. So absolutely more of us should do it. And I think in a very unusual year, I think every seat across New Jersey is up for grabs this November. So we should think about that, so it's a bit of an unusual year is my understanding.
That's right. We may not be able to, from the pulpit, we can't recognize, we have to be impartial. However, we can fully support on a personal level our good Catholics running for office. And I would encourage many to do so. And there's a number of good Catholics who currently serve in the New Jersey legislature. And I'd love to see people added to their ranks.
And really, right? I think if you're not going to take the seat or run for the seat, then our obligation is to support them and campaign for them.
Come to think of it, Donna, I've never thought about it before, but you would make a great member of the legislature. Yeah. Have you ever considered it?
No. I'm going to have to think about that, though, Mike.
Are you
going to be my campaign manager? This is just what I want to know.
I got news for you. I will leave the diocese to become your chief of staff.
I'm sure that would be my purgatory on earth. So I'll take it.
I'm very happy that the Parish Phase has started because, when, this was always sort of intended to be a grassroots, the Eucharistic Revival was always intended to be a grassroots effort. Where, we really did our best to educate people into, quite frankly, not becoming Protestants. It's the one thing that makes our Catholic faith very different from every other faith is the fact that we actually believe that, the Eucharist becomes the body and blood of Christ. It is not separated. As a matter of fact, I forget if we mentioned this earlier today or not, but in the Diocese of Camden, the last of the COVID missives is coming to an end, and the precious blood will finally be presented to the people at masses. I think this weekend. I think it's the weekend of the June whatever. Where are we at? I can't remember. Of
Corpus Christi.
Yeah, the weekend of Corpus Christi, of course. Yes.
Perfect.
So we'll finally have the precious blood available to all of our people, which has been kept from them for 2+ years now. And I know they're very excited about that.
At the discretion of the pastor.
At the discretion, right? Of course. But now it's available to everybody, and that's great news. Donna, we talked a little bit about processions so far. In addition to processions, what are some of the parishes doing to support the Eucharistic Revival at the parish level?
Yeah, so the great thing is really helping the teams kind of think through what does this next year look like, right? So it's not programmatic. You're not trying to, I have used this phrase on here before in other parts of my work. We're not trying to sheep dip everybody has the same experience, right? We're really trying to touch people and look at are we impacting their lives. So what does a year of tending to your parish family look like? And so looking at the Eucharistic small groups, they look a lot of different ways, right? If you don't have small groups, how do you lay track to them, right? How do you till the soil that people are like, hey, I want to be part of one of those, So I think there's lots of interesting things that are happening. So I think what Deacon Bob is going to be able to talk about is what they're doing at St. Brendan, because it's a super cool thing to create this encounter with Jesus. And also cultivating the spirit and the comfort really for Catholics is to share their story, is to give their witness, because we are called to give our witness as to why we believe, right? Is to share the charisma, the story of Jesus' birth, life, death, resurrection, and what he did for us. And then where's our story in that? So I think there's really something super that they're doing in St. Brendan's, but I don't want to talk about it. Let Deacon Bob talk about it. But there's lots of different ways that the parish teams are looking at the liturgical calendar. So they don't have to do it all by themselves. There already exists a liturgical calendar in which you can do this work. There's also a parish calendar. There's already things that are planned. There's already multiple ministries, right? How do you go and meet with the heads of those ministries and think about, is our ministry really Eucharistic? Like, what more can we do to make that actually happen? But if you're looking at encounter, that's why I would ask Deacon Bob to talk about a little bit around what you did this year in Lent, and kind of one of your plans is for Advent, which was something that's very popular at this moment in time. So can you share a little bit with us around what that's like?
Well, we have a lot of plans we're trying to plan something for every month during the coming year. But what Don is referring to is during Lent, we showed episodes from season 1 of The Chosen, and we had a really good turnout, and we included food with every gathering, and we varied that from potluck to pizza to Wawa hoagies to whatever, but we had a great turnout. We had questions for people to consider after the episode was finished, and then people shared, and people shared really some wonderful things from the heart about their relationship with Jesus. And The Chosen really brings to life the gospel. It just, it really puts the gospel characters, into, they're three-dimensional as opposed to, two-dimensional people that we're reading on paper. And it's a great series, and we're going to continue that. We're going to do season 2 for Advent. We've got a couple of other things planned in the meantime that we're going to do in the summer and the fall, but we're going to continue that in Advent, and I think we'll have an even better turnout.
Yeah, I have to say, we talked earlier about how I was on pilgrimage, and I met a number. I have not watched The Chosen yet. I don't watch a lot of stuff anymore because I don't know why. It's sad, actually. But I don't watch a lot of stuff anymore other than sports. But while I was on pilgrimage, I had person after person after person come up to me and tell me, first of all, that I had to watch it. And second of all, that it had really touched them because it is so well crafted. It is like, in my line of work, we always talk about, production value. And they say that the production values on that is everything you would expect to see in a Hollywood film. It is
absolutely
just that good. But they say that the cast is also genuinely great actors, and then apparently the lead actor Jonathan Rumi, who plays Jesus, is really an advocate for Christianity in general, but also people coming on board to watch it and be truly moved by it. So it's really an impressive show.
Yeah,
matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, what's that?
He's Catholic, Jonathan Rumi.
Yeah.
If I could just add to that, my sister and brother-in-law and my brother and his wife have been after me for a couple of years to watch The Chosen. And like you said, Mike, you're busy. You kind of know the story. Okay, another story. But so finally, this month, I sat down, Bob, and I went through season 1, and I think I cried in half the episodes. It's that movie, because the characters become just alive for you, and so I'm glad you mentioned that, Bob. What you're doing, because I'm thinking about doing the same thing at Sacred Heart. And I'll be talking to you and Father Kelly about how you planned it, but it is worthwhile. As you said, it just opens up the scriptures to encounter Christ in a different way. It gets you behind the scenes, as you had mentioned, and it's a lot of fun, and it's very, very moving. And I highly recommend it.
Yeah, the one thing I would say, if you cried during season 1, wait till you get to season 3. I mean, they're really doing a beautiful job with it. And I follow The Chosen and their actors in the socials, and what the response now is, for as much as people love this and they can't wait for season 4. And I think their planning is for 7 seasons. Everyone is dreading the Passion, because now it will be their friend Jesus that they will watch be crucified. And so people are not looking forward to that part of it. But I thought, what a way that show and the way that they're portrayed. And I know some of it's fiction. They put a fictional life behind some of the apostles. But they just come to life for you. And you feel like you're walking right alongside of them. And it's beautiful. They've really done a nice job with it, I think. And their mission, I love their mission, right? These are evangelicals, is to give 1 billion people an encounter with Jesus. What a mission. That's amazing.
That's great.
It's amazing. Yeah. So we should want to do the same in this country, because the Eucharistic Revival is not a global initiative. It's a U.S. initiative. So imagine activating all of us to give billions of people an encounter with Jesus over the next year plus, actually onward, like for the rest of our lives. That should be what our call is.
And as we tie it into our conversation, maybe watching 40-minute episode tie into a short period of adoration before the Blessed Sacrament, so you can really just pray in front of our Lord as you encounter him on one medium, really encounter Jesus in the most Blessed Sacrament. Maybe a way for folks to pray with it, So, because it's all about encountering the love of Christ, and that's what the revival is all about, and that special way of his presence in the Eucharist.
You know what? And I didn't think about this until just now, but one of the things that, we talked about pilgrimage earlier and how that sort of tied into everything. The folks that have watched The Chosen and then went on pilgrimage to the Holy Land, actually being in the sites that were represented on the show, they were genuinely moved by. The Chosen isn't filmed in Jerusalem, it's filmed elsewhere. But having actually been there where Jesus walked and where he taught, and where he was killed and where he rose, really, I mean, there were a lot of tears, not by me, by everybody else, but they were genuinely moved by it. And I think seeing those representations, and Donna, I think you make a great point, becoming, air quotes, friends with these characters on the show is really moving. And we've talked about it a couple of times when we've done these Eucharistic Revival episodes of the podcast, that, sometimes I think in this modern world, it can be difficult for people to understand our Catholic belief of what is happening during the Mass when, the host becomes the Eucharist, or the wine becomes the precious blood. That's, in modern age, I think it's not surprising that people have difficulty with that. And I think the Eucharistic Revival was well timed in its creation. There in the time since the 2019 Pew report first came out, and this was the report that said that 30% or 70% of Catholics don't understand what the true presence of the Eucharist is. In that time, the report has been a little bit debunked as not necessarily being erroneous, but as having not been as broad as it should have when in the questioning. So some people may have answered it inaccurately, which is what happens in any poll or survey. You go back and you relook at it again. However, it was a perfect idea to create this Eucharistic revival, to talk about the thing that I think a lot of us have taken for granted. And, as we've had these discussions, and certainly Donna and I have been a part of all of the conversations on the diocesan level as to how to implement the Eucharistic revival in South Jersey. The thing that's really impressed me is how creative people have been in finding new ways of telling this very sort of, is it to say, I was about to say basic. I think it would be more accurate to say mysterious element of our faith, the Eucharist. It's basic in the sense that it's a tenet of our faith, but it's mysterious in the fact that, we don't see it. There's no change in the touch. It requires our belief beyond all of that. It kind of harkens back a lot to the Apostle Thomas, and he being, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, let's go with taught by Jesus. That blessed are the people who didn't need to see the wounds in his sides or the wounds in his wrists, for things like this. So, Jen, have you been touched by the Eucharistic Bible?
Yes, I think Donna and I talked about it on your Joyful Disciples episode a little bit, Donna, that I learned a lot more about the Eucharist in the last year. And just because of the opportunities. The opportunities, there were so many of those teaching sessions and adoration opportunities.
The holy hours.
Yeah, the holy hours. It's my brother happened to come up and visit during the last year from Texas. And, we had a long conversation about the Eucharist. And, he's like, I don't understand, how to believe that is the true presence. And just some of the things that I've learned in the last year during the revival helped me explain it as best I can anyway. And I don't think I would have had those tools, before this revival to at least meet him where he was at. So yeah, definitely.
Don, have you been surprised by anything as the Eucharistic revival has sort of unfolded, either with people's reactions to it or in the planning of the revival at the diocesan or at the parish phase?
So I think at the beginning, the response that we got for the procession last year on the boardwalk shocked me. I was like, there's over 1,000 people here on the boardwalk. I had no idea. But so that's our people, right? Showing up, and everybody came, all the parishes came, and so we had well over 1,000 people. But I think the response of the people on the boardwalk, right, who were there for concerts or just touring along the boardwalk on a summer night, people bowed, people kneeled, people made the sign of the cross over themselves as we came by, not us when the Eucharist came by, when Jesus came by. And my greatest memory is a little kid saying, Mom, they have Jesus. So I think that, and I think we were a big outward sign on the boardwalk. And I think our call is to be a much greater outward sign, just in our own communities. Are we actually identifiable as Catholic in our communities? Do we believe? Do we share? Do we talk about it? Do we invite? Not always to Mass because, they know we meet every Sunday, but certainly people need to be invited back who've left, give somebody an experience of the Mass. But there are so many things that happen in our parishes, like what Deacon Bob is doing with the chosen at their parish. Imagine inviting someone else who's not part of our community. Like, are we talking to people that aren't part of us? We have a tendency to do a little bit of inside baseball. Like we talk to each other, like, let's talk to some other people. Let's take advantage of this. But I also think this is part of the journey that parish teams are taking their parish community on around encounter, formation, so that they're ready, so they can go do it. Right?
That's one of the goals in Camden, Don, exactly, is to take it to the streets and to have folks recognize that, in June, there's going to be other parades going on in communities. Month of June, we all know. I think this is the most important procession that'll be taking place in our cities is the procession with Christ himself. And it's so important that Bob's doing it and down the shore and his community and other communities in the diocese and here in Camden. this would be the most important procession happening. It's God himself walking the streets and walking past the broken here in my city, in our city, the homeless. And hopefully, if we touch one person, Bob, in our processions, if one person thinks, about going to church that weekend or reaching out to a parish community, or who would feel they need to talk to a priest or someone about what's happening in their life, then it's a success. Jesus touched one person at a time, in the Gospels. He touched the woman at the well. He touched the heart of Bartimaeus and Nicodemus and all those wonderful stories in the Gospel. It's one encounter at a time is how we bring Christ to the world, and I think this revival will help stir that again. We all pray.
Deacon Bob, I'm not sure how much time we have left, but I did want to just, I was out of curiosity, because you said you had already, worked with the chosen. I mean, from what you've already experienced and then what you're hoping for the next year in the parishes, have you seen a change in the people, not just the parishioners, but, those who have been taking part? Like, we're all talking about going outside, and that is what we do when we're processing. But doing these small groups is starting inside, and then hopefully that also going outside. Is that something that you've seen or heard about?
I can say that I've heard a lot of people talking about their experience because of what their participation in the chosen, and people are just seem to be much more open to talking about Jesus and their experience and what they have encountered in those sessions. So.
And I think the word you're using, encounter. So the encounter your parish enabled for those parishioners who now may be in other circumstances outside of a church environment will be willing to talk about Jesus. And that's exactly the point.
Yeah. And I think that, with the procession, I mean, we have no idea how Jesus out there on 96th Street might affect some people who haven't been in church in years. It's not all up to us, he's there, and who knows what some people's reaction may be. We'll see.
And in a lot of ways, Camden and Avalon and Stone Harbor could not be further apart in their nature. Yeah. One is perhaps one of the wealthiest towns in New Jersey, and certainly Camden is well known for being one of the poorest towns in New Jersey. And it really doesn't matter because Jesus preached to both. He pulled from both for his apostles and his followers, and then the people who came to the Sermon on the Mount. They were all there. So it doesn't matter what those communities are like. If one person is going to be in Ralph Lauren and the other folks here will pick up their stuff out of Walmart. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. That's the beauty of the Eucharist and the beauty of the Catholic Church. None of that matters.
No, and can I add one thing, Mike, to what you're saying? And it goes to what Deacon Bob said. It's not all up to us. It's not all up to us, right? So whenever, and I've been here 5 years, and I know a lot of lay people are, co-laboring around the diocese, and sometimes the work feels frustrating, and it's like, you know what? Our only obligation is to do the work. The fruit is up to Jesus. Jesus brings the fruit. And here's the other thing, the last thing I'll say about the National Eucharistic Committee, NEC, national, whatever. Yeah. They're calling for prayer and fasting. Okay, it's been a long time since I've heard our church call us to fast. And so it's like, okay, let's talk about what it's like for maybe a Eucharistic Revival team to pray and pick a day, maybe to fast or skip a meal, or like how you call your parish to it. But I've not heard a national call to fasting in a long time, other than Lent. And Lent is like, 2 small meals and a medium one or whatever. It's a big deal. I noticed it because they're talking about it a lot.
That's a good point.
That includes Jewish apple cake, I understand, right?
Oh, which is why Mike should give it to Jen.
Here's the actually, I got to tell you, Father Vince, you know how to hit a button, because I am currently putting it in my mouth right now. Thank you very much for that. Matter of fact, Jen, if you could close out the show while I'm chewing.
Mike will be right up. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Father Vince. Thank you, Deacon Bob. Thank you, Donna, for being on the show. And as always, thanks, everyone, for listening. See you next week.
Thank you. God bless everybody.